So I am reading this chapter on Einstein's theory, and I'm listening in parallel to these discourses, spiritual discourses. I said, wow, they're talking about the same thing. It just clicked. I said, I got my answer. There ought to be something deeper into this. I need to find this out. Because they appear to be saying the same thing in their own language. One is the mathematical language, and talking about space and time and expanding universe and Big Bang. And here is in the spiritual discourse, they're talking about meditation and being one with the universe, which is same thing as the laws of the universe being one. Very common terminologies. And I started picking on those commonalities from one by one. It took me, I would say, at least 5 to 6 years. Whenever I got a problem solving a mathematical riddle or trying to explain scientifically a phenomena or something happening, I would listen to the spiritual discourse deeper and deeper and really think about it. Aha, I said, it converts into this equation. So then whenever I had a problem understanding a spiritual concept, I went to the science. And aha, it gave me the answer. So I went back and forth until I got to a point where I said, wow, this is almost 99% of it. It all fits together. And that's when I wrote this book. So this book is actually a physics thesis. It's all equations. But it has in it what's missing, what I think, from the current mainstream theories of science, of physics, cosmology, because it does resolve the paradoxes which we'll talk about in cosmology, in physics. It'll talk about how those paradoxes are in parallel with the paradoxes of life and how they merge together into common solutions by one set of missing physics, which I'll talk about. And that's what I call science of wisdom or consciousness, which is missing from the current mainstream theories of science. If you add that into science, it becomes total. It gives you answers to the life, and it also explains, it provides a scientific basis to understanding spirituality or religion, because you can get the answers there. One answer, ask any question, they're parallel questions. When did the universe begin? How did it become about into this universe? Big Bang theory in science. It's the same question, same answer. And there is a common scientific basis for everything. If we add consciousness into the scientific theories. So that's the whole subject here. And then we'll see how we answer some of the key questions in life we have. What is purpose? What is meaning? Happiness? What is the value of life? Who are we? Where are we going? We can essentially answer almost all key questions scientifically, and that's the whole purpose of my presentation. So it's a little deeper, and you probably will hear many of the concepts the first time. So please be patient, ask questions if I lose you as we go along. But we have, I think, an hour and a half or more, so should be able to answer most of these questions in simple way. Next slide, please. So you have heard this Einstein's famous quote that science without religion is lame and religion without science is blind. Albert Einstein. Now why did he say that? He probably had some insights to say that, and that's where he got his theory, and he built it up. So I just expanded on that. I would say science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind, and without consciousness, they both are paralyzed. And I'll show you why, and how we can remove that paralysis to make both of them live and talking to each other. Next slide, please. So these are the basic questions we can ask to both science and religion. Could science reveal purpose and meaning of life? If you ask any mainstream scientist, he'll say no. Keep them separate. Why are you mixing? Why are you confusing? You know, we have our research funding. We can calculate this. We can predict that. We can land these satellites at Mars or the Mars. You know, we can conquer space. Why do we need to put meaning and keep that separate? Leave it to this religion. On the other hand, religion also says, hey, keep it separate. It's belief and faith. If I have faith, I have my faith, don't touch my faith. I live by my faith, and that's my teddy bear. So both of them want to remain separate, and each of the disciplines also, majority is like that. They like to keep it separate because they either threatened by each other, they don't understand each other. But the key question is, could a complete science and a genuine religion which has the scientific basis reveal a common universal reality, which we often call it as a God? What does God mean to us? To a religion, it's like Big Daddy in the sky who creates you, and he knows he is under control of what you do, what happens to you, your fate, and it's a belief. It's a belief and faith of the God of religion. In science, there is no God as such as in religion, but science also talk about dark energy, which they don't know what that is, which is expanding the universe at almost the speed of light, and they don't know what that is, what's causing that. They have dark matter, they don't know. I mean, they have some theories, but there's no common consensus as yet as to what they are. So, next slide, please. So, why is there a need to put them together? So to understand, to develop a common understanding between the two. You see this unrest in the world today, the interfaith hostility. World is divided by religions, different faiths. My faith, his faith, her faith could be entirely different. The rituals and the common practices in those faiths divide us. There is no common ground to develop that understanding that we are common human beings. So that's the most important thing, a benefit of doing this dialogue between the two and developing this common understanding. Science we have used tremendously to benefit the material quality of life. I love my iPhone, we love our TVs, HD TVs, 4K TVs, and all the music systems and communications and medical advances, and we love. Science has given us a good quality of life, but has it given us contentment, happiness with which we can live in harmony, peace, as well as with the purpose and meaning of our life? No. So that is another value that can be provided by this dialogue. And science is to work to better understand religion so that we get a wholeness of our life and the universe. So it could be a balanced, tranquil living in peace and harmony. Next slide, please. And then also, as human beings, we'd like to know what is the true nature of reality. What is underneath? What do we not know? What lies underneath what we see and what we hear and what people tell us, what science tells us or religion tells us? What is the underneath ultimate reality that controls everything? So that's a fundamental question. I think we talked about some of these things. And of course, once we understand the basis of which is common to us, our life, it reduces our fear. What do we fear? Fear of uncertainty, confusion, of course death, stress, anxiety, what's our future going to bring to us. All these cause anxiety and suffering of a sort which we do not have a grasp as to how to take control of our lives in keeping them under control, these negative aspects of life. And also to enhance happiness, humility and gratefulness once we understand the true nature of reality underneath, and to provide answers to some big questions, which I'll have a list of that at the end of this. And you probably have many more which are not answered. Go ahead, please. So let's see, why does science not work? What is lacking in science that is not able to give us the answers we are looking for a full life? Not only material answers that, oh, why does my iPhone not work? Or why doesn't my TV not work? Or how do I get this channel or that channel? Or how do I make more money and whatnot? Other than that, the fundamental thing that is missing, science does not know even how to define consciousness. If you go ask, I blog on some of the big groups who are working on this issue. People like Deepak Chopra and others are involved in that. Just to define consciousness is a challenge. If you ask science, the consciousness has only a biological meaning. You know, science knows consciousness through biology, brain, neuroscience, those kind of things. What they can measure and see and control with the instruments they have is their a limitation of how they can understand consciousness. So it's primarily limited to biological consciousness. You can check your pulse, blood pressure, or they can measure the waves coming from the brain from neuroscientific studies, and that's how they will tell you whether you are alive or not, or whether everything is biologically functioning or not properly or not. But it does not even go as far as talk about purpose. Since consciousness is not defined, it cannot define meaning and purpose. All it can define is what it can measure. And for that reason, today the major scientific theories which are there, general relativity, quantum mechanics, Maxwell theories, they all have paradoxes. So the nut bottom line is that they can only describe 4% or less of the universe. Now, mission of science is to develop a universal theory which can predict the universe. But as of now, 96% they do not know what is that universe, dark energy and dark matter. So that's how incomplete they are. Yeah, I talk about that. If I take a physics course and get a 4% grade in my paper, what will I say to myself? Complete failure. But that's the way it is. They're trying hard to find the 96% of the missing universe, where that is, and why are not even able to even put our finger on it. So one of the reasons is that all our measurements, how do we measure with or see? Our eyes can see only this much. Our ears can hear only this much. Our instruments can measure only this much. All of that limitations lead to 96% missing reality we do not see or hear or measure. And that is completely foreign to science. That's why science fails. Now, if 96% of the universe is, let's say, immeasurable, but real, how do we include that into science? And science will say, oh no, we can't depart from our normal method of measurement. So they miss 96%.
Would you expand a little bit on how did you get the 96%?
I'm coming to that.
Good.
Yeah. So we'll just get to that, to what is missing. If you add that, you predict the 96%. Okay, the next slide, please. So this is what I already talked about. This is Michael Turner, is one of the famous cosmologists. That's his quotation. He wrote a book called Absurd Universe. He's one of the leading cosmologists. And he's saying the absurd universe, the universe that science predicts is absurd. I mean, it doesn't make even sense, not all inconsistent, because 96% is missing. Next slide, please. These are some of the main missing paradoxes of the cosmology today. Dark energy, dark matter, birth and age of the universe. Well, we do have a Big Bang theory. That's probably the most commonly believed theory, which says that the universe was born in a Big Bang about 14 billion years ago. And that's based on a lot of data they have collected. But it's marred with all these paradoxes. It does not know what dark energy is, which is part of that Big Bang model, but they don't know what that is. Future of the universe, there are all kinds of theories. There's a cyclic universe, it will go up and down, it will die and get born again. Others say it's ending in almost death, is expanding so fast that it will end up with infinite expansion, everything will die and the universe will be dead. Those are also predictions of some of these theories. So there's a big question mark. Is that true? Parallel universes. Now that's the biggest, you call it, what I call it, it really throws a big monkey wrench in the whole science. The whole purpose of science is to develop a universal theory. Now if there are multiple or millions of universes, that means there could be millions of theories. So which one is correct? Which universe you want to predict? This one or the other parallel universes which exist? So that's why Michael Turner said it's an absurd. The whole story of a Big Bang is absurd because it relies on parallel universes. So what happens to the universe we are talking about? And then quantum versus classical reality. How many people here know about quantum physics? Okay, quantum reality or physics, which deals with these small particles like photons and atoms and things like that, it's the reality it gives is entirely different from classical reality we see every day in our life, which is we call Newtonian reality or classical. So this big disconnect. How do you explain what goes underneath at very small scale? What's going in the neurons in our brain, how these neurons try to make us think, feel, and have emotions. So we have a feeling of I, who am I? How is all that working at very small scale? It's quantum mechanics try to address that, but it fails to do that. Now, what we see in classical world, the planes are flying, the cars are running, these are classical world. That world is so different from what's going underneath at very small scale. So they try to merge. There's a big disconnect in science to be able to explain the truth. They don't even know at this point that if you observe small particles of, let's say, an atom or an electron or a photon, how does it come into, who is observing? They don't even know how to define the observer who's looking at it. Who's taking those measurements? Who's making the interpretations? Since that fundamental observer is undefined in science, it throws a big monkey wrench into whole quantum reality. That is it real when we don't even know who the observer is. They cannot define time. Science cannot have a physical definition of what time is. Although we have all these theories, we are flying planes, we are building satellites, we are throwing, we are going to Mars. We are doing all this, but still there is no physical definition of time. Where does it come from? So, big questions which build paradox of science, and no wonder with all these open questions it can define life, meaning and purpose. So, next slide please. So how do we come to your answer to your questions? How do we resolve all this? Next slide. So essentially this universal relativity model is the one that I've been working on for past 20 years, and it's described in this book, and also just several papers are published, but a recent one, which is the most recent one, actually got accepted in Journal of Physics Essays. As we speak, it's going to be published in December issue, which describe the scientific model, which resolves all these paradoxes, many of these paradoxes, scientifically, mathematically, vindicating the empirical observations of the universe. So basically the idea is this, which is summarized here. All these small particles like photons, electrons, which we are built of. We are built of atoms and molecules, and universe is built of all these little particles and waves. Particle and wave, they are similar things, but one is energy, one is mass form. So the crux is this: science treats all of these small entities, particles, as particle of matter. They are inanimate. They have no life. They're just like they're dead. There's no life in it. So they treat them as that. That's how they measure it. So when they look at, but they cannot define, according to quantum mechanics, they cannot define where a particle is. You cannot put a hand on it. Oh, that's where the atom is. That's where the photon is. Nobody knows to put a hand on it. It's all wavy and up in the undefined in space and time. But what is missing is, it's well known that this universe, these particles are going out, coming out, being born and dying. They are coming and going at their own. There's no force telling them or being exerted on them to get born or die. So the mass, particle of mass like a photon, it moves at a speed of light. How does it? It comes out of a bulb. You turn on a bulb, the light comes out, and this light, as soon as it comes out, starts traveling at speed of light. How? How does it get to speed of light? There's no force forcing that photon. Because let's say if I push it, if I have to move this, I have to put a force. If I have to move it at even 1 foot a minute, I have to put a force on it. But how come the photon of light comes out and start moving at speed of light? That's the missing physics. How does an electron revolving in an atom close to speed of light, where does it get this energy? Why is it moving? So what science says, yeah, it's moving. The quantum mechanics says all these particles are moving. They just take it for granted, they are moving. But nobody asks question, why? How do they move? Why is the universe big question. Universe is expanding. Everybody knows that. Science knows that. Nobody knows why. So that missing physics is basically it's a simple equation that describes that physics, and the fact that this universe is full of light. We cannot see the light in all the galaxies and in the universe which are bright and brightening the universe. As you look in the sky, all these stars are galaxies. The empty space that looks empty is full of photons of light. You can't see them until they hit something and light it up. And all these photons are moving at speed of light. Where did that energy come from? So this gave me a clue. That's what is missing. So next slide, please. So just to simplify everything for you, rather than going through the details of the whole of mathematics and science, E is equal to mc square. How many people have heard about this? E is equal to mc square of Einstein's famous Einstein equation. So quite a few. I know many of them have not heard, but all this says E is energy, m is mass, and c is the speed of light. All it says, and all we have to know to get to the secret of what is missing from science, is that any mass is also energy, and any energy is also mass. E is equal to m. So m is mass, E is energy, and it's related by speed of light. So once we know this, it gives us clue that all those particles are the universe expanding. That dark energy, so called, is coming from, it was a mass in particles, and they have freedom to be as energy or mass, and that freedom itself is consciousness. The definition to me of consciousness is self-induced motion. Bottom line, self-induced motion. Every alive thing has self-induced change. You know, a bacteria is alive because it can move. Anything that can induce a change without any external force is consciousness, is conscious. Now, is this universe conscious? In this definition, yes, because the motion in the universe, the expansion, is self-induced. There is no God pushing it at that speed of light. It's each particle, each content of the universe itself is capable of self-inducing to convert from its static state of mass to energy. And that's what is causing all the motion or activity which leads to the consciousness of the universe. If we use that concept as the missing physics and add that to all this hoopla of mathematical model of the universe, it start answering all the questions which we just listed. The paradoxes which have not been resolved, they get resolved, and as we go through that. Next slide, please. Yes, so I'm going to cut out, this is the details of the please keep going. Next one. Next one, please. Just to show you that just adding that feature, I just want to show you this because this is the crux of what today's science cannot predict. They cannot predict, these are all the galaxies, far away galaxies at 10 billion light years away. They are moving almost speed of light, and they cannot explain why. Because they have that missing physics where the mass of these particles converting to energy, pushing it out, that forms the dark energy, gives the kinetic energy and how the universe is moving. So you predict that. The red line is the prediction of the model I have developed. The blue line is what the current science, the Big Bang theory is. It cannot predict that data. So this is the crux of cosmology. The biggest paradox of cosmology, which is 76% of the universe is dark energy, this expansion which cannot be predicted by Big Bang theory. So that's the power of it. I just want to show you one example without going through the details. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the recent publication. Anybody is interested, they can get to this one. Next slide, please. Also described in my book. So, how do we convert all this knowledge from science into life? That's what I'm going to go next. I just want to give you a quick idea so that you feel that there's a scientific basis behind it. So I just gave you a 10-minute quick shot of about 10 years of research. Let's go on, please. So coming to how do we convert all these parallel concepts from science into life and then start answering the questions which we would like to answer. And these are, I would call it science of personal transformation. Now, just like a particle converts from mass to energy at its own, by its own free will, that's a lesson for us. How to transform from mass to energy means from egocentric I, which is mass is what? A bonded energy confined within boundaries. What's an ego? Is a confined consciousness within certain fixations we have of ourselves. So it's the ego itself relates to mass, and what's the energy when these boundaries are broken and expanded, and we remove the holding forces and constrictions restrictions, our false values, our dogmatic rituals or false beliefs, understandings which hold us as a person or a personality or mind exactly is equivalent of a mass in scientific terms. A mass is energy bounded by in space and time, so it cannot know, it is not aware of what's happening somewhere else where it is not. So the personal transformation is to reconnect to the true self, means the universal self, not the one that is confined within the boundaries of our convictions. So basically all those transformation things to achieve mindfulness, emotional well-being, physical health and vitality. So by converting the parallel of what we learned from science, we can learn how to live, because if we understand the parallel terminology between the mass is ego, velocity is converting mass to energy, that's a transformation from mass to energy. Expansion is expanding our sphere of awareness. The universe is expanding at speed, so when we connect to the universal self, we are also expanding. Means our awareness is expanding, we are not expanding, our body is not expanding. This today somebody asked me a question, oh, we talked about this velocity expansion, we are not moving, we are still, how can you say that a human being can move at speed of light? No, it's your mind and thoughts, it's your consciousness. And the next slide please, we come to that, explain that. So what is controlling this transformation from mass to energy, or from egocentric notion of ourself to an expanded universal self? You'll be surprised to see that E is equal to mc square control both of those processes. Without that, if E is equal to mc square weren't true, there will be no creation, because mass cannot convert to energy. Nothing will move. It will be a dead universe. If E is equal to mc square was not there, nothing can change from its current state, so it's dead. So there will be no creation, no galaxies, no star, no planets, no earth, no human beings. That's how powerful that law is. Now, this law is not just true here or at one location. The whole universe is aware of this law. Now, is that God or something? Is that the creator which allows this creation to happen? I said in my terminology, yes. If that weren't true, there will be no biological life, no human beings, no planet Earth, no brains, no thoughts, no emotions, no experiences. Even the neurons that are firing in our brain, just like photons, they are using that relationship to convert from our thought to emotions, because our brain cannot fire without that law. It cannot fire neurons without E is equal to mc square. That's how powerful that is. So this is the hidden mystery behind the whole creation, including our mind and thoughts. Next slide please. And we'll come to see why that is true. Now this is this famous physicist Freeman Dyson. He is almost contemporary of Einstein. He's currently alive at the institute where Einstein's in Princeton, the same institute. Here's what he says, that there is evidence of 3 levels of mind in the universe: the human mind, the mind residing at the micro level, and at the very micro level of the universe. He's saying that when we see these atoms which can automatically convert from mass to energy at their own free will, that to him, that freedom of choice exists at the atomic level and at the human level as well, because we are built of these same atoms. So he tells that is to be an evidence of a rudimentary form of mind in the universe. Means the universe is alive. Next slide, please. Another cosmologist, Brian Greene, you probably heard of, he has many of TV shows. This is what he says: as you read this text, E is equal to mc square is at work. All the interpretations going on while you're reading can't happen until E is equal to mc square was not true, and so on. So the mind-brain phenomena is equivalent of the wave-particle phenomena known in physics, and they are all governed by this relationship, E is equal to mc square. Next slide, please. So essentially, there are parallel concepts within life that govern our life, mind and consciousness, and the particles and the waves. They are all following the same laws of nature. There is one set of laws of nature that's governing everything. There is no 2 sets of laws, that one governs matter and one governs life. So this is, and the reason why that is true, because at the smallest fundamental level, the same laws are controlling the behavior of smallest particle you could think of, and the biggest galaxy you would think of, and anything in between. Human beings and all the beings that fall in between, they all follow the same one law, one set of laws. Next slide, please. And there are some more. I will pass on this one because there are more studies that shows how the mind, they have done measurements on mind and studies on mind to show that it follows the Einstein's relativistic laws. There are a lot of measurements done to show that it's true. I'm going to bypass all that in the interest of time. Go ahead. I think I've talked most of this. Go ahead. Next slide, please.
Could you go back?
Yep, one back. Okay. So what is basically saying, trying to convert E is equal to mc square into the life understanding of that concept, like E is energy, and what is energy? It's a lighter form of the mass. When the mass becomes light, when you lose it mass, it becomes light, right? So light is being light means losing mass, converting to energy, and that's also called enlightenment.
What happens if you use C to represent consciousness, and then if you raise it to the power of consciousness, which means that we collectively have access to the energy that that formula produces? What do you think of that?
That's the interpretation I have too. C is consciousness here. C is actually, a lot of people ask this question, it's known as speed of light.
But it's C square.
Square means it plays more role than just C.
But the speed of light is a limiting factor.
Right.
The speed of light squared is a heck of a lot faster, but we're supposed to not be able to do that because the speed of light is a limit. So why is the square part?
Oh, well, that's how it works. It's built into the nature. We can't change it. It's not our choice. That's how it is. When you take measurements, like when you operate a nuclear reactor and you use nuclear fuel, it's going to produce certain energy. It follows this formula. It happens according to this formula. It's a fundamental truth.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just trying to follow the logic. So why is it squared? What do you think? I mean, okay, you said that because that's how it is, okay, but that's not an explanation to understand.
Yeah, so why it is not cube?
Yeah.
Why is it not to the power 4? I don't have answer to that. Now, when Newton's law says F is equal to ma, force is equal to mass time acceleration, that's the way it is. That's the way nature works. It's not force is equal to mass time acceleration square. It doesn't work that way. Because there could be million of combinations of M and C's. None of them work except this one. So this is a unique combination which human beings or scientists have discovered that works. Now why it's not a different one? Nobody has that answer.
None of our instruments measure something changing from the C that we call as the boundary right now. What if we go into a meditative state and you move your mind to different times and so forth? Are you going at our C? Or we can
C is the
measure?
limit to which you can go.
Why? I mean, a mimic for certain things,
Yeah.
but is it a limit for everything?
But you
Why
can,
do go faster than current C
Yeah,
that
but-
we can use in our physical instruments?
but the crux is you can explain everything with the limit C. You don't need to break that limit to explain.
And we really?
Yes,
explain everything?
that's the whole crux of this presentation, that when you hear that things move at louder than speed of light, no, ain't true. You can explain what you observe with limit C.
Nonlocality says that that's not the case, though, in terms of consciousness.
No, non-locality.
Theorem.
With C, you predict non-locality. I discuss a lot of that in my book and papers.
Well, not local. Instantaneous healing. I can heal a person across the universe
Yeah.
instantaneously.
It's because you reach C, not beyond that. What happens?
It's instantaneous.
Here's the crux. Let me give you how to explain that. When you move at speed of light C, the space has reduced to 0. Since space has reduced to 0 means you are everywhere. So the distance that separates you has reduced to 0. So you are actually at infinite speed. If you are moving at speed light C, you are at infinite speed because you are everywhere all the time. So the non-locality is explained by C, because C cannot be exceeded mathematically.
Oh, that was a quote, you put a limit on it, that's that.
Because what happens at limit C, the space goes to 0, the time goes to 0, nothing is left for anything to move in, because everything is everywhere, because the size has gone down to
You're down to a
point. So anything what is in that point will think that I am everywhere all the time, because the space, the distance has gone to 0. So, but it's wrong to say that nothing can move beyond speed of light. Now people try to explain this non-locality based on higher than speed C, but you can explain it with C limit.
So then why did we have to square it?
That's how the nature works. Why can't
Just
the
saying God did it, okay? I mean, it's just a black box. It's not a real answer.
no? But what I'm saying that that why, if you are looking for the answer to that question, you can keep looking. But nobody is holding you to understand life and its meaning without answering that question. The point is that knowing that limit is enough for you to understand the meaning of life. You don't have to break it.
So it's an interesting point you made there, the equation going to infinity. Well, it kind of, if you mirror it to the singularity, have you kind of thought the relationship between that infinite and then the singularity that they talk about in the Big Bang?
This model eliminates the singularity. There is no singularity. Here's what happens, the singularity, the reason there is a singularity in Big Bang model or general relativity, because it does not have the transformation model which we talked about. It does not follow in the spirit that the mass can freely convert to energy. So when you, in Big Bang model, when you start calculating your to size 0, you still have all that mass that can convert to energy, and you're pushing it down to size small and small and small. It blows up because mass does not know that I can freely become energy and escape that point. So it gets infinite density and blows up, and that's the singularity. So what I show with this model, as you go to size infinite small size, the mass is also converting to energy. So the density is not blowing up to infinity and not causing singularity. So I can calculate the size of the universe as far to small size. I had calculations which I in my figure show 1 e raised to power minus 150 order of magnitudes, which is 100 orders of magnitude smaller than Planck's scale. I can do those calculations because the model allows this transformation, science of transformation, the free will transformation between, which is also supported by mass energy equivalence principle. The mass is equivalent to energy. It allows, but these theories do not have that built-in mechanism for mass to convert to energy, so it blows up. The singularity comes from there. Allow the mass to convert to energy, and now you can compress it to almost 0 size. It's converting to energy, it's not blowing the density to infinity.
So one way of looking at, because we see speed of light is finite, that we know, 186,000 miles per second.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they say that your thoughts can travel faster than speed of light. In order for thoughts to travel faster, because they're infinite, right? You can put your thought at the end of the universe, wherever that might be. In speed of light might take billions of years, but your thought's already there instantaneously. What you said earlier, basically bringing out of zero space. But at the same time, according to this, the energy required for the neuron to transmit at that rate should also be infinite. Therefore, are these things really behaving in a similar model or different?
No, so that's a good question. Now here's the crux, which again science does not bring it out, and they don't know. I'm going to make a statement which is going to answer your question, why? A smallest particle in the world, smallest that you can think of, mass, has enough energy to accelerate itself to its own free will to the speed of light without needing any external source.
The C is very large, and I believe you that. Yes.
Okay, so there's no single mass that cannot accelerate itself to speed of light at its own without requiring any energy from outside.
So a photon has enough energy so that's an axiom, that's something we accept, that's just is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we accept that, then it makes sense.
Yeah. So, but this model predicts that. Now, let me make another statement. there is not enough energy in the universe to accelerate even the smallest particle to the speed of light by external force. So those two facts you got to remember to understand all paradoxes of science and life. The reason I'm making these statements because there is a deep spiritual message in it.
Would you define external force?
Yeah, external force which is imparted on a body from another body which is not part of this body.
But that body also has the same energy. That it could accelerate itself.
Itself, yeah.
So why couldn't it accelerate the other one?
Here comes the Einstein's theory. So Einstein theory, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just a question of intuition.
Intuition? Let me answer this one, then we come to that. So these are the two fundamental facts, and I think they can explain you every spiritual law and physical law. Each smallest particle in the universe has enough energy to accelerate itself to the speed of light. And there is not enough energy in the universe to accelerate a smallest particle to the speed of light by externally forcing it. Because Einstein's theory has one equation where if you take any small mass and if you put a force on it to accelerate to the speed of light, it needs infinite energy to accelerate to the speed of light, even the smallest particle, when it's done via external force. So let me try to convert that to a spiritual message. Each of individual has enough energy within itself to enlighten itself to the universe awareness. But even the smallest particle or man or human being does not have enough. The universe does not have enough energy. All religions of the world does not have enough energy. All the morals and principles you define cannot define you enough energy for you to be enlightened. That's the fundamental lesson learned from the way we understand how it works. So you convert these simplest physical laws into the crux of spiritual laws that control life.
So the smallest particle that we know, the God particle, apparently, if it exists, would be the smallest particle, correct?
Every particle is God particle.
That's true.
It has enough mass to enlighten itself to the speed of light.
And no matter how small the mass.
No matter how small it is. Pick a number. It has enough energy to accelerate to the speed of, and this is predicted by the equations here.
Is that you're adding on to that, this is way back in my mind. E equals MC squared with a square root, and it's 1 minus V squared over C squared.
Yeah.
And
That's the
puts the zero and the infinity.
correct. So that predicts that what I'm talking about this. I just skipped all those equations, but that's what predicts it.
That was in his equation.
That one equation is missing from Einstein's, which is here in this model. That's what is
It
missing.
was missing? I don't
Yeah.
know how I got it.
You can derive it. Now, here is what I call it. See, Einstein says his biggest blunder was that cosmological constant. If you heard about that, he came up with a fudge factor to explain why the universe is expanding. It's called cosmological constant. And then once he put that into his equation, he said, oh, that's the biggest blunder. I'm a scientist. I'm not supposed to fudge any theory. But he fudged it because he believed in a universe that is expanding. So he said, okay, I'm going to put this fudge factor, which will make it expanding. But then he said, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. So he said he made that mistake, but he could not find a physical basis to describe why it is expanding. He was a fudge factor, which is like a fit. So what this model does actually defines that physics and derives the equation that determines the cosmological constant in terms of V, C, and M, which Einstein was looking for. So that's how powerful, because that missing physics of free will of conversion of mass to energy, Einstein could not put in. Only he could put in was a fudge factor. And this model derives actually a mathematical equation for that physics, and it's no more a fudge factor. And what it comes to the fundamental insight that the universe is alive, the particles are conscious, they have free will to convert, and which is the same lesson which we learn in our life, that we have free will to convert and transform. So I call this, when I talk about this topic, it's a science of transformation, personal transformation. The universe is telling you, particles are telling you how to live, how to conquer death and suffering. They're telling you. They did. A photon lives forever. It has no space and time limitations. It lives forever. And it's everywhere. It's omnipresent. Because space and time is non-local.
The photon never decays.
No. It has nothing to decay into. It's converted to energy. And that's what we call dark energy, which science is missing.
It can be absorbed though. It doesn't decay, but it can be absorbed.
It'll absorb, but that energy is never lost. That energy is never lost. It can convert, transform to another form, photosynthesis. It converts from photon to thermal, but it's never lost.
Chemical energy or thermal.
Yeah, so it never lost. So that's just one example. What I'm saying is we are just touching the tip of the iceberg in these fundamental lessons we can learn from nature. So let's keep moving. Okay, now this slide shows you don't need Einstein's theory to come to this conclusion, what I said. This says just a simple law. Actually, the whole universe is governed by one law. You know, if you go to physics and chemistry, they're all different kind of laws, hundreds of them. But there is only one law which encompasses all of these laws, and all of these laws are actually corollaries of that law. And that is one source. It's all one. It's called law of conservation. Whatever is has always been and will always be. Law of conservation. There's nothing new can be generated or destroyed. One is omnipresent, and one never dies and it never is born. Just by knowing the law of conservation will tell you all spirituality. You don't need any mathematical equations, physical models to reach that conclusion. Not even Einstein's theory, because it's all one, which is just changing form, transforms from mass to energy, space to time, but it's the same thing, converting from one form to another. Then it's all connected, because that same law pervades the whole universe, means it's non-local, right? It's not limited to one region of space or time. It's non-local. So that just one simple law. And if you look at the law of conservation, what that is, it says this equal to this, right? Right side is equal to left hand side with equal to sign. So let's say this equal to this, and this equal to this equal to this. You start from one, and you can develop many versions and forms of that one, but that same law brings you back into one. It's one, ek onkar, Ik, one. So that's all you need to know to learn the fundamentals of spirituality is this one law of conservation, because every law is a corollary of that one law. Don't need Einstein's theory to arrive at that basic message. So bottom line is, what exists, always will always exist, it did always exist in the past, that's called existence, is equal to eternity, because it's eternal, equal to cosmic consciousness. Whole universe lives by that law. It's conscious and aware of that. What is that? Cosmic consciousness or awareness. If it was dead universe, it won't know. One place, location of the space will not know what the other one is doing. Everything will be localized and dead.
Does that also apply to infinite number of universes? Possible.
That's a good question. How do you resolve that puzzle?
Could there be other laws in other universes? Could E equals MC square
No,
be not valid?
no, because you could explain all observations of the universe with one law. Where did this mistaken conclusion of parallel universes come from? So I give one example. Let's say you're looking at something through glass. You see that one object through the glass. You break the glass, it shatters. Now you look at the same object through that broken glass. It looks many. So what science measurements have done is crack in the interpretation of that one into many. So the parallel, when they can't explain 96% of the universe, they come up with these parallel universes. Means I just dump it on the other universe because I don't know. So we say gravity, the quantum gravity they can't explain. Don't say, oh, there's a parallel universe and there's another one that causing this to bend and this. So they're simply dumping it. Might as well call it dark universe instead of saying a parallel universe. Might call it, hey, I can't explain it. So this whole notion of parallel universes come from, in quantum mechanics, they try to explain the classical reality. They will say, oh, if you are John, there is another John in a parallel universe which is causing all this multiplicities of explanations. So it's a cop out. It's like it flies in the face of science. You cannot do science if there are parallel laws. Then which laws you are searching on? It makes the whole science meaningless if there were multiple set of laws. Which law you will hold true? So now how do I explain these parallel universes? What happens, just like I said, one is equal to this, that equal to that. Now you can divide into many things. You can take a piece of dough and make many cookies from it. Now these are many cookies are parallel universes of the dough. And if I can't explain, if I don't know about the dough, I say these cookies they live in parallel universes. That's why they look alike. But that John is talking to this John, there was a mirror image of this in the other universe, blah, blah, blah. So it's like a cop out. But you do not need parallel universes to explain the observations of the universe. You can predict those galaxies far away without going to parallel universes. Yeah. Did you have a question?
I was curious to intuition with following this once somebody is in 100% intuition.
Yeah, you could have intuition, but it has to be within that law. How do these spiritual masters have the intuition? And they come out and say one. they had that intuition. So it's all intuition means their awareness have gotten to the point where the intuitions are being born. And if they are within those laws of the universe, those intuitions will be correct because they will come out to be true. If those intuitions are not following the laws, they're one, it's all one. If they're violating beyond, white elephant is an intuition, but there is no white elephant. A unicorn is an intuition. Tomorrow I become a millionaire is an intuition. But it has to follow the laws of the universe. The laws of conservation have to be hold true for that intuition to be hold true. So again, whether it's the mind, intuition, or the laws of love, anger, they all have to follow those laws. Only thing is the interpretations are different, the contexts are different. We add our own meanings and convictions to those realities that are happening following those laws. And those color and convictions we give them can vary according to our personality and what we have acquired as our convictions. But the reality, what is true, holds according to those laws. Yes.
I got a question and a comment. Are you familiar with the perspective of Deepak Chopra on consciousness?
What was the question?
Do you have are you familiar with Deepak Chopra?
We have published papers together.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. My comment is, if he was here at this presentation, along with, say, Buddha and William James, I think they would all go along with this. But this is one perspective, okay? I think a lot of what is left out in most of philosophy and psychology is levels of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get to a certain level of consciousness, you have what's basically called understanding, and everything comes together. And I lucked out a couple of times, and I from meditation experience, for several days I was at a higher level of consciousness. Nothing like where Buddha was, but just a higher level. And what I understood was the structure of reality is entirely different in the upper levels. And with there, you get a much more depth of understanding. The other experience I had was in LSD. And for 30 seconds, I understood everything there was to understand the universe. Unfortunately, it only lasted 30 seconds. And I lost it all, coming back down.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with a book called Mind, The Workings of Your, I think it's The Workings of Your Mind by Michael Pollan? It's a very
No.
popular book now.
No.
Anyway, it goes into psychedelic experiences and how you get depth of understanding from that. So anything, any feedback you have on those, that perspective?
Yeah, so Deepak and I exchange every day at least, I would say, several emails. We blog on the same parts.
Oh, really?
And every time he says agree. So, so similar perspective you can get, so.
Are you an advocate of meditation and
Yeah.
ways of getting to higher states?
I actually make the same presentation as Science of Meditation. This is Science of Personal Transformation. In fact, the transcendental meditation is nothing but, this is a mathematical version of TM. How do you convert in your mind, how do you get to the state of full awareness? When you ask me that question, I immediately go into my model and say, okay, this is how you get it. This is how a photon will do it. And this is how your neuron in your mind will do it to get to the state of full meditation. And this is how it will experience that state of zero or nothingness, or the state of 0 point where everything is whole one. Because it's all what I'm saying, what this gives you a mathematically true picture of what's going on in your mind when you're meditating.
But how can people sit in this room using the mind, or subconscious or conscious, reach to that state where one is trying to connect to?
How is you have free will. If you have free will to get to that, you will. When you realize that, you will. But how? Somebody, if you got a force from outside, it will be the reverse. There is no external force or external conviction or external help or external impetus which will make you enlightened.
So what do I tell the free will to do what, to take me where?
It will tell you. Okay. The other example which I heard, which really struck me, if you want water out of the ground, just remove the dirt, the water will come up. So you remove the convictions which are holding you, that's the dirt. As you take it away, the water comes out. You are holding yourself, your convictions are holding you. The nature underneath wants to expand. Universe wants to expand. It's already expanding. You are holding on to it. So it's my convictions, what I have been taught, what I have been told that it is true, what I'm holding to is holding me. If I let that go, it's going to expand. So a technique, or somebody says, okay, in 2 months you do this and you get there, chances are may not work. But if you are determined, if you have free will, you let yourself go. You have your own free will is going to get you there. A photon gets to the universe by itself. If you try to force it, it will get heavier and will never get there. No external force or impetus can help you enlighten.
Is that what you meant by the reverse? That a moment ago, 5 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago, you said the reverse would happen. Is that an example of what you meant?
I didn't get your question.
You're shaking your head. Could you explain?
She says, and I think she's right, that you said that if you try to accelerate a particle from the outside,
Yeah,
the opposite will happen,
Right.
which is it'll become less accelerated.
that's
If
right.
you allow it to accelerate itself, it will have.
Yeah,
the
it gets
possibility-
heavier. When you try to accelerate from outside,
Yeah,
it gets heavier. It gets heavier because now you're putting energy into it from outside.
Right.
The more you put in, the more that energy becomes mass. It gets heavier, heavier. It gets so heavy, there's not enough energy in the universe. You can even move it.
that's amazing.
Is a thought a particle?
Yes.
Oh,
Thought is a wave particle. Particle is a wave.
I belong to the congregation here, and Unity's basic tenet, it's not a religion or anything, is that your life experience is created by your dominant thoughts.
Mhm.
And believe me, when you can get to the point when you can change your dominant thoughts, or at least look at them, and correlate that to where your life experience is, when you start changing your dominant thoughts even a little bit, you can see how your life experience changes.
It will, yeah. Because our thoughts give color to our experiences.
Yeah.
If I come from a jungle, I have been born and raised in the jungle with animals. My thoughts will create my reality. It will color all the experiences to that. A man who is grown up by wolves talks like a wolf, thinks like a wolf, and sees like a wolf. So all our convictions create our own reality, which is not the reality, which is a human construct. what Deepak Chopra calls that a human construct. We have a lot of debate on that. He says the whole universe is a human construct. And what it really means that these galaxies, stars, atoms, this is all human construct. These are models but human create. I don't go that far. I say no, atoms are real. But unicorn is a human construct. White elephant is a human construct.
Avtar, one of the movies, well, actually Bill Goff and, well, I think Judy, well, one of them promoted this movie that was in Cupertino in a theater there that had the concept of universe, or rather lives, happening all, remember that movie we all went to see? And Bill, I wrote, oh, Jerry, you can explain that. Anyway, it does show that every second, every nanosecond, every moment, we're creating a whole new life and a whole new, like fractals, and that they're all happening at the same moment, and they do already exist, and they are existing, and they're going to exist. In other words, like you said, nothing dies, nothing, you know, it's all here now. I mean, all these lives, and that movie did a great job, I thought, of showing how it all coexists now,
Yeah. So
and all the choices we make.
let's move on. I think interesting discussion. There will be more concepts. I want to cover all of them. But what I'm saying, these are, my objective here is to not to, it's impossible to give you all the wealth underneath these, what you can learn from a complete science. A science that is complete. What has misled us is an incomplete science, which is 96% incomplete, does not include consciousness. So scientists are their own enemies. They don't want to bring purpose, meaning they say, hey, let us stay to our own area of measuring, and this is all we are going to do. But I would like you to be curious enough to see beyond that the ultimate reality is the simplest thing in the world. All you have to know is all one. There's nothing can be simpler than the ultimate reality of the universe. It's all one. Means what is there will always be there, and it was always there, and everything else is a derivative of that reality. And you can construct infinite number of those realities, but so long as you realize it's all one underneath, now you are connected to the source. And that's all you need to know in terms of the genuine science and genuine spirituality. It's as simple as that. Nothing can be simpler than that fact. No equations, no lectures, discourses, no techniques, no nothing. If you understood that in the gist of your awareness, everything else will fall in place. Yes.
In your concept and the model you're giving us, does time really exist?
Good question.
I mean, now I know time works real good when you're solving physics problems, but in some of the meditations I've done, it was like time is all flat. It's just like everything is now.
This model tells you, I explain all the empirical observations of the universe without time. Big Bang theory that universe is 14 billion years old is a story. Time, the universe has no clock. If you go in a galaxy far away from here, ask what is the time? They say, what do you say? What do you say? What time? Time is here in our minds, in our thoughts. The thought creates mind. When we separate ourselves from the one, when we make 2 or 3 or 5, now we have created distance in space and time, and the time we give birth to time in our mind's biological consciousness. That's why spiritual masters say that you get to the stage where the birth and death are gone. Time is gone. The timeless, the nothingness they talk about, which I call everything-ness, is that 0 point state where the time is gone, space is gone. Non-locality. Universe is non-local. It has been shown. Non-local means no space, no time. So the universe has no clock. So time as such that we know of in our general, we, of course, everything we have to go by time. We have to finish this by 9:30. But that's real. We have atomic clocks that measure time to the 10th or billionth of a degree. But does time exist in the universe? No.
How do you explain change in the absence of time?
Time is change.
Wait a minute, you just said time doesn't exist.
But by creating a change in our mind, we create a notion of time.
So you think outside of our minds, time does not exist?
Time does not exist in the universe, but in the relative reality we create with our human senses, with our ears, nose, throat, and our mind. We create a reality that has time as a relative reality founded in the notions of our making, of our mind.
So how does change exist before we existed?
If we, now before, you're already introducing time in that question. Your question is already, polluted with time. So now you can't answer that question without time.
I say time does something which creates the change, creates dynamics. Dynamics creates evolutionary change. Evolutionary change produces sentient beings who can ask that
It does.
question.
So time is a relative reality, but not absolute reality. It's a relative reality in the frame of reference which you are in. Now you go into intense meditation. Let's say you will experience no time. Time will not exist. Now Einstein used to say, if I am sitting with a pretty girl, the time flies like anything. But if I'm having hard time, time doesn't move. So in our senses, it's a relative time. That time is different from a clock time, of Earth rotation and things like that. So, but you ask a galaxy far away from here, at what time scale you are moving away from Earth, it won't tell you that. It does not know any clock.
And you say time is not operating out there.
No.
Okay,
Universe has no clock.
I disagree.
Okay, so you can disagree, but tell me where the clock is. Tell me what is the time at galaxy N52, 10 billion light years away from here? What is the time?
That's not my question. My question is, how does evolutionary change happen without dynamics? And without dynamics, we can't go from an ant to a human. So therefore, that functionality of the universe is required for us to become sentient.
It's a relative reality. I'm agreeing to that. It's a relative reality, but not absolute universal reality.
Okay.
So within this framework of this model, you have an absolute reality which encompasses within itself, in the frame of references of the observer, multiple realities. You can call them multiple universes. These are sub-universes of the one single universe which is absolute. But in all these sub-universes, time clock fixed at a different speed. It's not the same clock. So there are multiple universes, multiple clocks that are relative realities relative to your understanding of the universe. Each understanding which is different from the absolute understanding creates a universe which is a relative reality of yours.
Meditate on that.
Correct.
Love it.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, to win over that relativity, you got to get to the state of 0 point where the space times are gone. That's what the spiritual masters tell you to do. Science won't tell you that to do. They will tell you parallel universes. That's why you need to do this, to explain all this. To have a coherent picture where you answer that question which you asked as a relative reality, but as a subset of the absolute reality. But not that as a total reality. You understand?
I'm getting there.
Okay. Okay, so
I look at it as, I totally agree with you that there's only one. That one includes everything, every thought, every theory, every possibility, every illusion. It all exists within that one.
yes,
Okay, so we are just seeing right now from this perspective a little tiny part of it.
correct.
And that's why we confuse and daze and trying to, but you would have to be outside if there was such a thing, but there isn't. There's no outside.
There's no outside.
There's no outside, so we have to look at from the inside. And I think that when we say enlightenment is that when this little self here maybe can open up to see the one.
Correct. In fact, it's not one is also a misnomer. It's everything.
Yeah,
The everything-ness
yeah.
is the awareness which gives you the feeling of one is like a language thing,
Right.
but it's everythingness.
The whole enchilada.
It's the whole enchilada. So once you have that whole enchilada, now you are not separated from it. You don't see time. Then this time is always comes with a distance. When there is no distance between you, when you are not separated, there is no time. Only when you have separated in space, you have time. Time goes with space. And time, that means distance. So, anyway, this is another way to look at life. How do we convert? Now, this is a simple model. We learned this in probably the Newton's theory. We learned in like high school, before high school. So, you have a mass, you put a force on it, and you move. So, there is a desired destiny where you want to move to, and you have distance, time, speed, and then you have the phenomena that are controlling that you are getting to that destiny is your relativity, friction, entropy, disorder, uncertainty, whether we will get there or not, or you may have a setback, never, you go back, not get there. Now this is a simple model of motion. This is the science, laws of motion. But all these laws are telling you about life. Entropy, uncertainty, disorder, friction, these are all sufferings. These are all mental anguishes. All those particles of thoughts that are moving according to these laws are experiencing these functions. They are experiencing all of these. What is distance? Is the desire. If I want to get somewhere, it's my desire to get there. If I want to get something, it's my desire. What is that? That's a distance between me and the state I want to be there by getting that thing. When I get that thing, that's a state of being when I got it. So it's the same parameters that are controlling the motion in the real world, what is controlling our mind and its functionality of our destiny. Uncertainty to get there, entropy measures the suffering. The uncertainty or probability of getting there is our uncertainty. Our confusion in our life is built upon on all these functions. So same law that are governing the laws of motion is governing our life. What is happening? These processes are happening at very minute level in our thoughts and mind, so we don't see them. We get absorbed in them. But once we understand life in this way, we would know how to understand and control it. Because the same laws govern what we see outside, and what laws are saying, their same laws are going inside our mind. They're governing. So if we know the laws, we can now live with them and try to avoid the uncertainty, the entropy. Now the entropy, how do you get to zero entropy? Means no suffering. When a photon gets to the 0 point state where it's all over the universe and moves at the speed of light, entropy is zero. A spiritual master tells you to meditate to get to that stage of nothingness, because he's telling you get to that state where entropy is zero in scientific terms. So
If we were to say that consciousness is now the independent variable, and that collective consciousness is the next extension of that variable, and that E equals MC consciousness raised to consciousness provides the energy to rescue our planet and ourselves, how would you take what you've shown tonight and get it to become useful, relevant to society, which is currently marching toward an asymptote on the x-axis that we are not going to get beyond unless we have a radical shift?
well, I'm not telling you, but the model will tell you, and some spiritual masters tell you. Let's get the whole world to meditate.
Okay, that's the answer that would solve that problem in your mind.
Now the problem, some of those problems are made up because of our thoughts.
Yeah.
Some of them are actually being energized by us because we are not tuned to the fundamental reality of the universe. Once they're all tuned to, once they know these laws, this one law, and they're all aware of it, they will act, think, and do within that law, which will automatically bring harmony and balance, because it'll take away the friction, the entropy. And so when somebody says that, hey, let's let him meditate, he's not joking. It simply will change the state of the mind that leads you to cause friction and relativity and act in a manner that creates all these problems in society. The interfaith harmony, for example. If all the religions are following according to this scientific law, they'll all talk the same way. They will not tell you, oh, you do this ritual, you do that ritual, you do this on that date, you do this in the morning. If you don't, you are damned. You'll go to hell. Right? They won't say that. So if they stop saying that hey, if you do this, you go kills that one, you go to heaven. If they don't say that, half of the problem of the world will be solved. I mean, look at the terrorism going on today. If the religion is understood in this manner, it will take care of how many problems of the world today. Because it is underneath, reality is very simple. It's just a matter of tuning ourselves to that reality. It looks complex because we are complex. We don't simplify ourselves to a state where we can see the simple. One is very so simple.
Yes, I agree with everything you've said so far. I came a little late, but for me, this kind of model and many others who have come forward with something very similar happened in my life in '92.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the same time, presenting this model is going to be a huge problem
It is.
because even if you go into, let's say, circles where we would think it would be helpful, like certain New Age groups,
Yeah.
they're not going to be concerned with what your evidence shows. In fact, they're going to be more concerned that this is your theory.
Yeah.
And everybody's opinion matters.
Correct.
And everybody thinks differently. And we've got to be all inclusive of everyone.
Right.
And this kind of chaos and confusion is what allows a Hitler or a Donald Trump to arise to power.
Right. Yeah.
And these people could care less about unity and oneness. They're so solidified in the ego.
Yeah.
So this thing with, I really like what you, I thought I saw it, and if I didn't, I'll say it myself. Time happens when we create matter.
Yeah.
No matter, no time. So whether it's a human being, a tree, a snail, a planet, there will be time when it expires, begins, ends, so to speak, but it doesn't end. It goes on to something else, as we know. So all I'm saying is, I love your model, and I support it, 100%. And because of free will, unfortunately, we are in a collective place where I don't believe in yours or my lifetime. We're going to see this model really implemented.
I'm not expecting that. That's why this is a tool for personal transformation.
Absolutely.
If you change, if you get tuned to this reality, it will change your world, your universe. Don't try to change. The moment you try to change others, you will create problems because you cannot accelerate anybody to the speed of light. It will get heavier and heavier.
No, but we can assist it. We can assist that process when people truly are looking for change.
Yes, so the assist means only if it's looking for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the one who's looking for it will come to you.
Of course.
But you cannot take a kind of a grand motto, let me go change the world. Because the moment you do that, it goes against you. By the law of nature. It's Einstein's equation that says that try to force a body, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier.
For me, this is common sense.
Yeah.
But common sense is not common sense.
It never happened.
It's uncommon sense.
Correct. So we have made our life so complex with the so-called common sense that we are departed so far away from the common sense, simplest reality. The simplest thing is the hardest thing to understand because of our own complexity.
It's gonna be hard.
What would that be?
What's that?
What you were just saying? What would that single thing be?
Transform, let it go. Let go of all your convictions. Think of all your convictions you have been told. This is not good, this is good, this is bad, this is bad. This should be this way, I should be there, I should have that, I should have this. Think it over and let it go. Let's say fly like an eagle in the air, then it doesn't force itself, it's flying. I mean, you will see that example from many spiritual masters, that as the eagle gets very high, it doesn't have to wing anymore to keep flying.
And the eagle doesn't watch the news at night.
So what I'm saying, in all those things they are saying, there's a science behind it. All I'm saying that I did not understand those things either until I start digging this way. Because this now tells me, aha, now I go to a discourse, I listen to somebody, and if he is giving me all kind of stories, I can tell, oh yeah, this one is according to laws and this one is not. This thing is yes, this thing works, this thing won't work. Because it follows the laws of nature. If somebody tells me that in 5 sessions I'll get you to the enlightenment, I said,
Good luck.
good luck. Because you can't tell me, somebody tells me, oh, come to my discourse, or let's go have these religious things and all your griefs will go away. I said, pardon me. That's not how it works. It's the transformation of your own will get you there, and that will be your free will, and you can learn from whatever you have. Buddha tried to do that. He followed everything what he was told. Ultimately, it happened by itself. He tried everything diligently, what every perfect master told him to do. Didn't get anywhere. He almost died. Because this loss. Let's quickly go if anything other concept we're missing. Yeah, so this is a nutshell which I show. This is what I plotted here, space-time. This is actually Einstein's equations. So what you do, those curves you see on the x-axis, it's velocity, and on the y-axis is the space and time. Space-time go to 0 when speed of light goes to c. It's simple, Einstein's theory. Converted to life. So what you see, the suffering and desire. Desire is the distance between you and where you want to be. That's the space, the distance between you and where you want to be. Suffering is the time or delay or the friction or entropy you experience to get there. Get there means it could be a glass of beer, for example, could be your desire, or a car, or a big house or something. That's where you want to get to. But so all that process, mental process, and the happiness and suffering you draw from it follows this law. The abscissa is velocity. What is velocity? Is the level of consciousness. The faster you move at close to speed of light, you are fully enlightened. Means you are fully conscious and aware. So it says that when your awareness goes to the awareness of the universe, your suffering and desire, the space and time, go to 0. This is the crux and the bottom line of all spirituality. All put into this one Einstein space-time law. It's as simple as that to understand. And this is a message from Einstein and from Buddha both. So when I try to at least look at myself, oh, am I right? Am I smoking or something? But then I think that, hey, both can't be wrong. Einstein and they both can't be wrong. They're saying the same thing. I just try to put it together in a way that I understand its common message from them. And this follows the strict mathematical laws proven by all the science. E is equal to mc squared has been proven by hundreds or thousands of tests. And it's the same vindicated law that follows life. And so if Buddha tells you the same thing as a spiritual master or a genuine scientist. They're not telling you two things. But when the same thing is interpreted, each religion has its own interpretation. Thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that, in order to get there. All those shall not or do not are convictions. And once you force yourself to those convictions, you are enhancing your ego and mass. That's what Buddha did. He tried to follow everybody and he got so suffering, he almost died. He said, I let it go. The moment he let it go, he realized this. So that's the message in this simple figure in a nutshell. It's the essence of, I would say, genuine science and genuine spirituality, all condensed into one simple message. Let's see. So this is basically the flow path. Paul, you asked that question, how? That's when you are let it go at free will, this is the process you move through. You know, from simple body, which have thoughts, emotions, actions, transformation to heartfulness, mindfulness, and then enlightenment. It happens, a photon does this, a photon of light comes out of the, as you turn the switch on the light, it happens so fast for a photon that the science can't even measure it. They're trying to measure how the photon at a zero speed when it comes out of the surface and accelerate to speed of light, it happens so fast, science have no instrument to even measure it happens so fast. So what they did, they gave up. They assumed that a photon always moved at the speed of light. So I asked them, how, when it's at a surface which is stationary, how can it move at the speed of light? You're violating the law of conservation. At the surface, when the velocity is zero, it has to be zero. It has to accelerate after it comes out. But it goes through that transformation. So some people ask, how long does it take to get enlightened? You know, people ask that question. So the answer is, for a photon, it's so small of a time you don't even know how small that is. For a rock, it could be millions of years. So if our convictions are so solidly bounded that they're like a rock, it may never happen. But if we let ourselves go like a photon, it can happen in microseconds. There's no one answer. So which time clock we should follow? There's no answer, one clock that answers that question. Because in all those stages, in all these stages, the clocks are different. They run at different speed. And there are different times in each clock. They're all relative realities. This has its own relative reality. It has its own clock. So when you say there is a time, there is no time. There are times. Millions of times, infinite number of times, which have no correlation with each other. They're all individual frame of references. I think we talked about this, same stages from, as I showed before. Next. So this one thing which I said is called non-duality. In spiritual terms, they call it non-duality. And in scientific terms, it's a law of conservation. It's same thing. Law of conservation says it's all one, which exists in different forms. It conserved. Whatever is conserved. And non-duality is what appears to be dual, it's one. So it's the same law, but in different languages, word we use. So it's basically, the bottom line is that once we understand this law of conservation or non-duality or oneness at the ultimate bottom, that's the ultimate secret of the universe. And to life, to science, to religion, everything else which is built into multiple compartments, multiple rituals, multiple gods and multiple practices, multiple techniques, those are all relative realities. It may fragment you more and more the more you follow it. It may enhance your ego more because you're trying to force yourself according to a certain conviction or philosophy. You're trying to force yourself according to somebody's, and you know Buddha failed when he tried to do that. Because there is a science behind it. And that's what is the crux of this insight. And next please. So this basically just summarizes that this model resolves all these paradoxes. The Big Bang, there was no Big Bang. This model does not even have time in it because universe has no time. So any model of the universe that's based on time, that universe started and created, so there is no creator, there is no creation, there is no time, zero universe created, and it will never die. There is no time of death. So all this Big Bang theory is not supported by this model. It's a story. It's like seeing the elephant through holes, many holes. If you see an elephant through many holes, you see its tail, you see its trunk, and then you build a story. You see the tail, you say, oh, elephant is tall, and you have heard that story, 7 blind men looking at the elephant. So these are stories. Anyway, that mystery is solved with this model. It solves mysteries and paradoxes of life. That's the summary overall. Next slide, please. So ultimately, we can close the gap between science and religion this way, via this model. And what does this have, which the scientific theories don't have, is the free-willed transformation between mass and energy. That's the only little one equation. I showed you that quickly, I skipped over. This one simple equation which is missing from Einstein's theory. You put that in and you open this wealth of information, merging the two. And that's how wonderful, I don't call it miracle, but I think it's miraculous. That a simple thing like insight like that can resolve all these paradoxes seem to be in life and in the universe, in science. Next slide, please. And so I just listed the questions. I mean, that could be a different topic itself. How do you answer each of the main questions? Go to the next one. I just listed about 16 questions, which all of us have. And this model provides answer to all of them. And just like simple, what is God? Who am I? Where did I come from? Where I'm going? What is the purpose, meaning of life? What is our greatest fear? How to get rid of it? It answers, because now you have a scientific model, you can address these questions scientifically, not because somebody is telling you to do this and not do that. It tells you the process the nature and life follow, which is mathematically precise, which you can utilize to steer your life. That's how powerful that is, and simple. You can go to the next slide. So all these questions I have listed, and in fact, one of the videos Steve Nagy we produced, the whole topic for half an hour was that answering what are the answers to these questions based on this model. So, but that could be a whole discussion in itself.
Are these slides, can you get this in the internet? The slides that
No, I have not designed a website yet, so I'm still working mostly at my own. I just got retired last year, so I get to do this all fun now full time.
Video of this online.
Yeah, so this video will be online, so you can see there.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's all I have. We can answer more questions.